Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We're just letting everybody into the webinar at the moment, so we will kick off in about 30 seconds or so. Firstly, if you can hear us, perhaps just pop something in the chat, say hello, tell us where you're joining us from this afternoon, and we will get underway in just a few seconds' time. Okay, so let's get everything underway. So thank you for joining us this afternoon, everybody, for this really interesting webinar on how you can supercharge your practice with the right tools. And we're going to provide a complete guide to maximizing the ROI of your accounting firm using specialist software. The session today is broken up into really three components for you. So first of all, I'm going to run through and give you a brief introduction to what we mean by specialist software. We're then going to take you through some workflow examples and perhaps highlighting where some of this return investment is going to come from by using tools that work really effectively together. And we save the best till last, and the last element for you today is going to be a panel discussion. I'm joined by a very experienced and knowledgeable group of people, where we're going to be picking up on some of the conversations that we're going to take you through over the next 20 minutes or so, but also give you an opportunity to ask us and the panel questions on how you can get the most out of software in your accounting firm. So to kick off, I had better do some quick introductions. So firstly, for those that don't know me, my name is Will Farnell. I'm founder and director of Farnell Clark. We're an accountancy firm based in Norfolk. I'm also co-founder of App Advisory Plus, which is a platform designed to help accountants make the most out of technology that's available to support you in your practice, but also to help your clients run better businesses, and in doing so, generate new areas of revenue for you as an accounting firm. And I've been around technology for a long time. I set my firm up in 2007, and we were one of the first 100% cloud practices globally back in 2009. And I wrote a book 3 years ago called The Digital Firm, which I hope is a blueprint for accountancy firms to get the most out of technology. And I'm delighted to have been asked to host this session this afternoon. So let's get cracking into what we mean. What do we mean by specialist software? So it's a term that you may have come across, you may not. But I think if we think about what's happened with software over the last 20, 30 years, certainly from an accounting point of view, we used to have firms that use lots of different pieces of software that didn't always talk together, but it was about having the best tax product. It was about having the best practice management product. And for whatever reason, we moved towards a suite approach where there was a period of time where everybody thought that using a connected suite was the way to go. But what's happened now with the evolution of APIs is that all of a sudden we have opportunities to take a specialist approach to the software that we choose, because these different pieces of software are now designed in such a way that they can work more effectively together. They can integrate seamlessly, and we can take the best of every element and build really effective workflows in our accountancy firm. So we'll talk about specialist software. You might refer to it as best of breed approach to software, but the whole point of this session today is to show you how technology's moved on in such a way that we can now pick products that are specialist in what they do. So we don't have this situation where you're using software as part of a suite and certain bits are better than the other. It's about you having the right bits of technology to deliver the best value for you as a business and the best experiences for your clients at the same time. So why is now a good time to look at this? I'm sure that 3 years ago, you were fed up of hearing about MTD, but it's very clearly back on the agenda. 2023 is now the target for MTD, for self-assessment. It's perhaps going to be the largest change that we've had to deal with as accountants for a very, very long time. So the amount of work we are going to have to do for clients potentially is going to increase. That depends on how you utilize the technology in your firm, how you bring together the right people doing the right things in the right way, and we'll talk a bit over the course of this session about mixing and blending the right people, process, and technology to drive those efficiencies in your accounting firm. Tax return season will start soon. I'm sure it's already started for many of you, and you're already busy on tax returns. But as we all know, the closer to January we get, the busier it gets. So we have this opportunity over the course of the summer to think about what we're doing and what can we do now that's going to either position us really well for the peak during November, December, January, or to even start thinking about what we do in February when we get beyond tax season. And we want to improve workflow efficiencies. We're working in a far more competitive world than it ever used to be. More people are sharing prices. The cost of compliance is broadly being driven down through firms working smarter, generating new workflows, new approaches that save time, reduce costs, but also give us the opportunity to increase our profits. So we should be constantly looking at what we do around workflows. Where can we save 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there? And as some of the workflow examples will show when we get onto those later on, that those 5 minutes per client soon add up if you've got 100 clients, 300 clients, 600 clients. So even marginal gains are going to make a massive impact in our efficiency and ultimately profitability. And this last point is the most key of all. There will never be a perfect time to look at your technology solutions and find better ways of doing it. There will always be something in the day job that's going to be there to distract us. You have to think about these kind of things as projects, dedicate the resource, the time, the effort that it needs to make these things work in your accountancy firm. So why are we going to do it? What are we going to gain? Because clearly any change is painful. There's got to be value. There's got to be benefit in doing it. And as we go through the session shortly, I'm going to introduce some of the panelists that are going to be with us throughout the rest of the session shortly. And a few of them are going to take you through some very specific workflows in terms of how the tools that are present on the call today can work together seamlessly to generate greater profit, more billable hours, but ultimately, and this for me and everything that I talk about is the most important bit of all, how do we provide better services to clients? Because fundamentally, that's what we're in the business to do. And if we want to be competitive, if we want to have competitive advantage when everybody uses the same set of technology solutions, the way that we're going to differentiate what we do is in what we deliver to our clients. So we're going to share some very specific examples of how using these tools collectively are going to help you run a more effective, more profitable firm that will enable you to grow effectively. So here's an example of a technology stack, a specialist software technology stack that you might see in a modern accountancy firm today. We have a number of tools here around the wheel, and it's just an example of how different tools can work together for different components of what you do in an accountancy firm. You'll see around the outside we've got all the things you'd expect: producing your statutory accounts, running your practice, managing documents, collecting data from clients, processing that data, reporting, payroll, and even things like internal communication. How do we reduce email by using internal tools to help us communicate effectively as a team? And how do we get paid? How do we engage our clients? How do we meet our professional bodies compliance requirements? And how can we avoid duplication of data? How can we avoid repetition in what we do? Selecting the right tools will enable us to do this. So let's introduce you to some of the tools that we've got here today. I'm just going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves, and touch on the product that they're here talking about today. So I'm going to kick off with TaxCalc. So Jamie, do you want to just join us to a brief introduction of you and TaxCalc, please?
Yeah, thanks, Will. Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name's Jamie Royston Smith. I'm Senior Account Manager at TaxCalc. I've been with the business just over nine and a half years. So yeah, my role looks after some of our key accounts and partners and networks. So yeah, in terms of what we do, hopefully you've heard of us. We look after accountancy firms and provide them with a wide range of compliance services. I know tax is in the name, but it's not just tax. We do also final year-end accounts production, practice management, AML, and a whole host of other things. So yeah, here to talk about the tax accounts and practice management today.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Jamie. And George, do you want to do a similar job there to Jamie for us?
Yes, thanks, Will. And sorry, everyone, I can't share my webcam with you. As we've just realised prior to the call, we've had a few technical difficulties there. But my name's George Kaisis. I'm an account manager here at SmartVault in the UK. I've been with SmartVault for about 2.5 years now. And as an account manager, my role is basically to talk to accountants on a day-to-day basis and show them the software, make sure it's going to fit their requirements. And prior to that, I do have a background in GDPR compliance and also cybersecurity, so I'm sure that'll be touched upon the presentation today. The product itself, SmartVault, we're a cloud-based document storage, document management, and file sharing platform, so a more secure way for you to share and store your sensitive data.
Excellent. Thanks so much, George. And somebody that needs very little introduction, Mr. Reader, would you like to jump on and introduce yourself from PI?
Sure. So, Will, thank you so much. I'm Carl. For those who know me, I am both a practitioner and working with Practice Ignition as a vendor. So, as a practitioner, I run D&T, which is a multi-award-winning firm specialising in the franchising space. We've got about 2,700 clients, and I also serve as chair of the practitioners panel at the ACCA. I also, with another hat on, serve as head of accounting for the region for Practice Ignition. So that role entails me communicating to the wider practice community about what PI does and feeding back to the business about what actually goes on in a practice rather than the theory of what happens. Now, Practice Ignition has been a game changer for us. It's a payments and client engagement tool. And what we've found is it's allowed us to completely eliminate all of our debtors and all of our lockup by making sure that we secure payment details for each and every client before we touch the work that we do.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Cal. And Chelsea, would you like to introduce Auto Entry for us?
Hi there, I'm Chelsea, everyone. I'm Auto Entry's training specialist. I've been with the company just 3 years now. So my role is just to train all of our new members of staff on the software so they know how to do the demos and obviously show the clients around the software. Auto Entry is an automated data entry app, helping accountants and bookkeepers save time, being more efficient within the practice as well, and eliminating you having to manually type up all of the data.
Excellent. Thank you, Chelsea. And Paul, over to you.
Hello, how you doing? Thanks, Will, for inviting me along today. I'm Paul Byrne. I'm the CEO of BrightPay. I've been here forever. In my previous life, I was also a practicing accountant for about 20 years, so I feel the pain of you guys. Payroll is basically all that we do. It's our specialism. So we have about 8,500 bureaus between the UK and Ireland using our software, and actually BrightPay is used to process the payroll for roughly 330,000 employers between the UK and Ireland as well. So that's us. We try to make life a little bit easier for you guys.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Paul. And Integrate QuickBooks are also supporting the event today. They're not here with us on the webinar, unfortunately, but I'm sure QuickBooks needs no introduction to the audience. So thank you, everybody, for those introductions. And all of those guys are going to be with us on the panel discussion very shortly. So any questions that you have for our panels, whether it's about individual products, whether it's about how the products integrate with other tools that you might be using, please use a Q&A box on the GoToWebinar panel there, and I will be facilitating that panel discussion shortly and putting your questions to our illustrious panel. So I hope that's all okay with everybody. So moving on, let's think about here where we're going to see these ROIs. So it's really important that we stop and think about what we do. So often we let technology drive our process. It's really, really important that we control that process ourselves. We as the accountants understand what it is we're trying to do. So we have to spend some time, we have to invest in understanding what the optimum workflows are before we start to try and find the right technology that's going to support us in deliver those workflows in a really efficient way. But once we spend that upfront time and we get clarity on what it is we're trying to achieve, and we get the right software in place, and we make sure that we have the right people, technology is simply an enabler. We've got to have the right people. We've got to understand what it is we're trying to deliver with that technology. It's no good having great technology if you've got people that won't use it, can't use it, don't want to use it. So it's really important that we have our people on board, but we also have to think about the process. And so much of what's going on with the technology that's available to us now is that we almost have to change our business model. We have to rethink the processes to enable us to get the best out of the technology. Now, most of the technology platforms that we're likely to be talking to in these situations understand this. They know what it is that firms need to be doing. So they're a great ally for you in helping you understand how to use the technology in the most effective way. And that's really where this next session of the session is going to be really helpful, because three of our panelists are going to take you through some specific examples and demonstrate the type of ROI that you can expect by using these technologies in the right way. So let's take you through some examples in terms of what this looks like. And I believe from my notes that we're going to hand over to Carl initially, who's going to take us through some client onboarding workflows. Over to you, Carl.
Fantastic. Thank you, Will. And just to give you all a sigh of relief, I'm not going to read through this slide word for word. I'm going to allow you to do that, but let me give you the spoiler. 61.9 hours saved, which is £1,857. You can see the detail of how that's come about here with a notional admin charge out rate and a notional number of clients and so on. And the results will vary from practice to practice. However, I really want to call out what Will's biggest theme has been here and share with you, I guess, the way that we manage D&T and what we try to achieve with everything that we do. You see, I'm a big believer in 2-second lean. And for those of you who've not come across lean management and those principles, what it basically is, if you were to rewind and remove the tech here, you wouldn't put your photocopier at the other end of the office to where the people who use the photocopier is, because there will be wastage time and time again. And whilst on each individual instance that wastage seems irrelevant, they mount up over the year. And here is the perfect example of where actually by having products working independently or not productively together, there's micro instances of wastage. So we see that we can ping the invoices from TaxCalc into QuickBooks. We can ping the engagement letter that's created into SmartVault. We've got the collection. On top of the individual benefits of each product, there's also an accumulated 2-second lean benefit, which in this case is £1,857. So Will, that's me done. You said I can only cap it to 2 minutes. I think I've done amazingly well, and it's now over to Jamie.
Brilliant. Thanks very much indeed, Carl. Over to you, Jamie.
Thank you, Will, and thanks, Carl. Yes, so I'm going to be talking you through self-assessment tax return workflow and then a final account CT workflow as well. And I think with these kind of workflows, you're really getting into high volume work. This is typically mainstay sort of compliance work that a firm's going to conduct for all of their clients. So what we've laid out is a workflow that has some key connections between apps that we think will really save you time. And using the same methodology and the conservative averages and figures, we're going to arrive at an ROI as well. So let's start. So for your kind of key business information, let's say this is a sole trader example, you're going to be able to pull in the financial documents from auto entry into QuickBooks. So not only have you got the time saving abilities of auto entry itself, but then that connection into QBO, so that yeah, you save a bit of time there. We reckon that's around 10 minutes per return, but likely much more. So we're talking 51.7 hours or 7K saved, and that's a conservative estimate based on our research. And then there's an integration from QuickBooks Online into TaxCalc. So the trial balance at the year end, once you've kind of finalized your in-year accounting, you can get the final trial balance out from QuickBooks into TaxCalc accounts production. Again, that integration is going to save you a few minutes per client rather than manually downloading that trial balance or that information from one program to the other. Again, a whole bunch of time saved. At the same time, you could use SmartVault and its document collection facilities to send out questionnaires and requests for information from your clients. So any other kind of supplementary information required to produce their tax return can be pulled in at this point. So you can do that en masse, and doing a bulk request like this could easily save a few minutes per client, allowing the client to then self-serve and pull that information into SmartVault for you to access and process. At this point, TaxCalc will probably do most of the engine work, where you've kind of got the input of the final tax return and accounts if required. We've also got practice management software that's going to handle that kind of year-end process and that status management as you work through the steps. So if you're using something like that as a kind of practice in a box solution at the end of that compliance process for, let's say, 310 returns, you'll be quickly looking at 25.8 hours or £3,612. So yeah, it's quickly adding up. And once everything's finalized, those final documents from TaxCalc, your tax return with the stamp that it's been approved and accepted by HMRC, can then be sent directly from TaxCalc into SmartVault for indefinite client access. So hopefully that means in future your client will be able to self-serve those documents rather than request those from you. Again, we haven't even factored that in, but just that integration from TaxCalc to SmartVault will again save a whole bunch of time. So that SA tax return workflow, 108 hours, £14,048. So 108 extra free hours. I don't know if that would all come in January, but yeah, that could certainly help at the busy season, couldn't it? So let's move on to, oh, go on, Will.
Absolutely. I was going to move you on to the final accounts and CT workflow now, Jamie.
Thank you. Yeah, and this is fairly similar, really, but yeah, so we're looking at a similar methodology, but for a limited company. So you're definitely going to need to use something like auto entry to collect the financial information, the invoices, the receipts, and upload those into your accounting software. So again, that link from auto entry to QuickBooks. Then from QuickBooks into TaxCalc, where you've got the trial balance integration. That's also a two-way integration. Again, we haven't factored that in, so you can even send journals back to QuickBooks Online. Then the collection of any other supplementary documents from SmartVault. Then your internal processing of your tax, your accounts to Companies House and HMRC. And we arrive at another healthy figure of 31.6 hours or £4,424. So the only real difference, I think, is probably the volume of clients that you potentially do with self-assessment clients rather than final accounts and CT. Don't know if it's the same for your firm, but we tend to see perhaps double the amount of self-assessment returns to limited companies or thereabouts. Yeah, so that's me done. Back to you, Will.
Thanks so much indeed for that, Jamie. And just a couple of observations there before we go on to Paul. Firstly, you'll see that these are clearly averages. Jamie made the point there that there will be less final accounts and CT than personal tax. That's going to fit with most accounting firms. But I think the other thing that has no value attached to this here is the increase in the experience that the client receives by this working this way. So things like easy access to accounts and tax returns, not getting accounts and tax returns in the post with the little notifications, here's where you need to sign, send it back to us. It's all about the experience we deliver to our clients. That's equally as valuable as the financial savings that we're demonstrating here with these workflows. Paul, over to you for some payroll processing workflow, please.
Okay, thanks, Will. So I'll just briefly go through the points here. So the first step to processing the payroll for your clients is getting the information from the client regarding their employees' pay and their hours worked. And this is probably the most time-consuming part of the payroll process. But by using BrightPay Connect, you can quickly streamline this whole process and eliminate a lot of the back and forth communications with clients. So BrightPay Connect itself is an add-on to the payroll software, and with Connect, clients can log into their own online portal to upload and submit the payroll data in a secure manner. So from there, you can review the information that has been entered by the client and sync it so that it automatically populates in BrightPay payroll software, speeding up the process and reducing errors. So BrightPay can also connect to a number of different systems by means of APIs. So once the payroll is finalized, you can send the RTI submissions directly to HMRC, send the pension files directly to various pension providers. And as for the example on screen, you can send the payroll journal directly from BrightPay to QuickBooks. So this step alone should save you about 2 minutes per pay run, which roughly equates to, say, 9.6 hours or over £1,300 saved in a year. The integration with each of these systems means that you can work much faster and eliminate the risk of human data entry error. And looking back at BrightPay Connect again, once the payroll is finalized in BrightPay, the client can run their own payroll reports from within the client portal. And the pay slips are distributed to the employees through an employee smartphone app. So the time saved sending these out via BrightPay rather than manually is at least 4 minutes per pay run, which is another, say, 19.2 hours annually or over £2,600 saved. And I'm basically basing this on a small practice with approximately 24 pay runs per month. So to wrap this up, the invoice for your work can be collected automatically by Practice Ignition once the work is done. So that stops you doing it manually and saves approximately 14 hours annually or just over £2,000 of billable time. So in total, all of this should save you just over 43 hours or over £6,000 that will go straight to your bottom line. And that doesn't include all the time savings that come with doing your work in BrightPay. For example, if a client sends their employees' hours to you through Connect, this will obviously save a large amount of time. Thank you, Will.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul. So just to summarize on this, and I can understand, I'm sure there's many people sitting there saying, oh, yeah, but the rates you've used are too high, or yeah, we wouldn't really save that level. It's an illustration to highlight the potential here for doing these things. So that example used 310 clients, so 310 self-assessment clients, 140 or so limited company clients. So it's an average size small practice. There's an argument that that maybe some of the rates were too high, some of the admin rates were too low. So it's intended to be an average. It's intended to give you an indication of what might be possible through the more effective use of technology. Now, if we take the summary of those savings that my three esteemed panelists used there, as I pointed out, 245 hours saved, equating to an average of about £26,000. That's a significant saving for a small firm of 300 clients. It's a significant amount of free resource to go and do something else, deliver more to your clients, deliver higher value work to your clients, go out and win new business, invest in extra people. The opportunities are endless. And that's really what we're trying to show here. When you think about what it is you're trying to achieve as a business, put the right technology in place with the right process and the right people doing the right part of that process, there are financial rewards for you as owners of accounting firms. So what do we need to do? Because whenever we think about implementing new software, it drives the need for change. Nobody likes change. We often make preconceptions about whether our clients like change. Often the challenges and mindsets for us as accountants to actually step out of our comfort zone and have the kind of conversations that we should be having with our clients that wherever possible we kind of put off and avoid. But whenever we think about new software, it requires change. We need to think about what's the impact of that change? How is it going to affect our staff? How is it going to affect our clients? What can we do to minimize the pain of that change? What can we do to ensure that we're making the process as easy as we can with the teams? lay out why we're doing it. So often I work with accounting firms and we go in and we talk about technology and the need to change technology, and everybody gets really hung up on the fact that we're talking about changing technology, but we're never just changing technology. The whole point of using technology is, does it add value to the client? Does it make the client's life better? If it doesn't, we don't do it. It's as simple as that. And every accountancy firm I've ever worked with, there's been one common denominator, and that's that every member of staff in an accounting firm cares about the clients they serve. So what we've got to do is we've got to reposition change to be about what we're delivering for the end client. And the pain that we go through in terms of new technology is about delivering more for that client. So make sure you get buy-in, make sure your team understand what the objectives are for that change and bring them with you. Think about giving them the support they need for training. Again, the technology providers will provide onboarding support. They'll provide you the training. They'll give you that hand-holding. They'll do the implementation and so on. And make sure that you give the time to the person that's driving the change in the organization. Make sure that they don't have to maintain their recovery rates and their utilization rates. If they're undertaking a change management program, you've got to support them. You've got to give them the resource, the freedom, and the time they need to deliver it effectively. And finally, before we wrap up and go into the panel discussion, key takeaways for you here. So things to think about. So if you're looking at technology, we said at the beginning, you need to understand your process. So talk to your team, ask your staff, what are the current pain points in the workflow? Where are you doing things that you shouldn't be doing? Where are you doing things that should be done by somebody else in the organization? What manual tasks are you undertaking? Where are you duplicating data? And ask yourself, what are the main issues you want to fix? Is it a client experience issue? Is it an account's turnaround time? Is it technology with a better user interface? Most importantly, talk to your clients, ask your clients, what can we do to make your life easier? The key to disruption is moving friction from a process. So if you want to disrupt, you want to be a disruptor, you want to be a pioneering firm, the way that every technology business has conducted disruption in their market is by removing friction from the process. So how do we identify friction points for clients, and what can we do to remove that friction? If you can make everything easier for the client by taking away that friction, your clients will be happier, they'll refer you more, they'll be more profitable. It's a win-win. So identify what you can do with a client to make it easier for them to work with you. Start with implementing one or two pieces of software, make it manageable, don't overdo it. I've been guilty of that many times in the past. And finally, remember you have permission to step outside the box. Nothing confines you to doing things the way that you've always done it. You have the choice about what you do and how you do it. And what I hope is the panel discussion that we're coming on to now gives you an opportunity to ask our panelists some questions about how to tackle technology change, why best of breed is the right approach to go to. And we're going to share some experiences in terms of what our panelists have done with other accounting firms that hopefully are going to be useful to you. So this is your opportunity. Do jump in and ask some questions in the Q&A box. But I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and bring on all the panelists so we can kick off our discussions. So hopefully I can see everyone. Finally, hope everybody's well. We're going to kick off this panel conversation. And Carl, you and I are the practitioners here. So we've run accounting firms. So I'm going to come to you first to kick this conversation off. So D&T, I know that you were very, very early adopters of all things new shiny tech. So you've obviously made lots of mistakes. You've got lots of experiences. I'm sure that you can share. So if you were starting D&T today, where do you start? What do you do differently?
Wow, what a question, Will. And thank you for teaming me up with that. So yes, we adopted tech really early. And when I say really early, we didn't buy into Xero in 2015 or whatever. We started cloud accounting back in 2002. However, the reason that we took on cloud accounting back in 2002 wasn't because of this utopian vision of software connecting to each other, because guess what, that didn't happen back then. It wasn't because we could improve client experience, because on the old dial-up internet, it used to take 3 minutes to post each individual transaction. Instead, the reason we did it was because too many CD-ROMs and floppy disks were getting broken in the post by Royal Mail. So that hopefully shares just where we started on this journey. And to be honest, looking at all of the mistakes we've made along the way, you know, we've made a few good bets, we've made a few bad bets, and we've seen the ups and downs of this journey. If I was starting again today, I would actually be looking at things so much more differently than how we did at the outset, because we, and Will, you'll probably empathize with this to some extent, as early adopters, we just kind of test things out and see if they work. And then we learn the change management skills after the event. So the stuff that you and I are talking about is actually things that we've learned the hard way, which is through team members saying, I'm not doing this. And right, what do we do next? Through team members saying, I prefer the way we did this 15 years ago. So what would I do differently? First things first, if I was starting practice today and looking at this, and in fact, if I was looking at re-engineering a practice, I would approach it with a blank canvas approach. I would try to forget every single thing that I've learned along the way about technology and try to go into it with open eyes. So what I mean by that is, if you're currently using an integrated suite or perhaps a non-integrated suite and you're just dabbling with moving this stuff online, rather than naturally gravitating towards a replacement of what you've already got, instead search for the best of breed. So do your research, get to understand what the software options are out there, but also get to know the people behind them as well, because this isn't just about tech. This isn't just about a platform that's on a screen and it does the job. What you need to know is that the people that you're dealing with, A, they get you, they get your practice, but B, they're going to help you and support you in this bigger vision. The second thing that I would do is make sure that my team were fully prepared for the change, the heartache, and then ultimately the benefits that this can bring. So I'd make sure that they're fully bought into the journey, they fully understand not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it, a broad map of how we're going to do it, and most importantly with that, just to make sure that they're on the bus. And then finally, I would bake into whatever it is that whatever plan that I've got, whatever strategy document, whether it is a massive business plan or just a back of a fag packet, I would make sure that within there somewhere we bake in the principle of can I, which is an old Tony Robbins phrase, constant and never-ending improvement. Because with anything like this, there are always small tweaks you can make to your systems and processes. And what's innovative within 5 years is no longer innovative. It's no longer a competitive advantage. So I would make sure that I'm constantly on top of what's going on in the technology world. Am I making the most of the software packages that I've got? And am I making the most of the totality of the packages that I've got?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Carl. And naturally, I concur with everything you've said there, and many of our experiences and mistakes were very, very similar. So we've got some very kind of specific questions from members of the audience that we'll come to shortly. Just a couple of kind of other bigger picture experience stuff from the panel before we move on to those. And when we come to those questions, we'll go and get to as many as we can, short, sharp answers, guys, if that's okay. But first of all, big question. So thanks, Carl. It was really valuable, so it's fine. When we think about implementing new technology, it's kind of what we're talking about here on this session. How do we make that as easy as possible? How do accountancy firms make that really easy? And have you as panelists got experiences of the kind of mistakes that you've seen people make before, so that the audience here don't have to make those mistakes? Jamie, can I come to you first on that one? So kind of how do we make it easy, and what are the mistakes that you've seen that people need to avoid?
Yeah, sure. It's really important. I think there's an element of the solution that you're implementing should be a simple one by nature and by definition. So user interface hopefully will be something you can pick up and run with without extensive training from the off. Hopefully we'll be choosing solutions that fit with that. But I guess it's no two firms are different, and there may be a requirement for handheld additional support and training that really teaches them and gets into the nuts and bolts of how that system works, so that they can configure it to the max for their individual needs. And that's something we definitely do at TaxCalc, where we have a customer success team and a training team that are there to help that implementation if it's required. The software is all built on a simple step-by-step process, so hopefully it's easy to launch and easy to learn yourself. But if you need that additional help, then we can provide that. I suppose common mistakes. I think it's easy to potentially underestimate or have preconceptions of what a system's capabilities are. So we would always recommend some form of pilot or trial. We really think that's a really good idea, both to get clarification on the features that you really require out of it, and that there's no misaligned expectations there, but also as an opportunity for that change management to perhaps bring some team members in as well, and to let them have a look at it and show them that it's not so bad before you actually make that decision. Sometimes that system is rolled out or paid for, that you sign on the dotted line, and it's only after that you realize that perhaps it hasn't met your initial requirements, and of course perhaps it's too late by then. So draw up a list through that pilot process of what your must-haves are and work through that. So I hope that helps.
Yep, thanks, Jamie. Chelsea, can I come to you, because you're being from auto entry. I mean, Jamie has let's say the benefit of most accountants are going to understand kind of the compliance tools, but you're perhaps talking to firms that haven't used a tool like auto entry before, so it's kind of a whole new world. So what's different for you to perhaps what Jamie's experienced?
I mean, with my experience, when I was obviously account manager for clients, I found with my clients, getting them to trial the software is very important. So I will say, we'll see what Jamie said, trialing the software is very important. Bringing one client on board, or maybe two. Don't pick. I've seen where clients have gone and taken 10, 15 clients, then they've got confused, and it's been like, no, just trial it with the one client, making sure you understand the software, you're getting all the training provided, the software is user friendly. That's very important as well. And just making sure you've got communication with your account manager. Again, we've got customer success teams here at Auto Entry, so it's not as though you come, trial it, sign up, leave. No, that's it, we're done with you. There's always support there, customer success, constant training, webinars that we can do. So that's very important. And I think attending webinars as well, just so you can keep your mind refreshed with the software, and making your employees go onto these as well, because you want your team to understand it as well.
Yeah, excellent. Paul, slightly different question for you if I may. What do you advise firms to do when they're coming to kind of change a solution? And I'm sure with BrightPay, lots of your change happens kind of firms changing over in April, start of new tax years and things. What advice do you give to accountancy firms that are making that transition? Do they just switch one off and another one on? Do they parallel run? What do they need to think about?
Yeah, it's probably the ideal time is around the tax year, because we often get situations where somebody wants to come on and convert 500 of their clients across from one system to our system, and that can be quite a daunting process to do it mid-year. Now, at the same time, we have developed the tools for migrating mid-year, and we have people especially trained here to help us to basically hold the hand through it. But the ideal, I suppose, is if somebody wants to change to us, that they parallel run maybe one or two of their clients, maybe even their own practice in the months prior to the actual tax year date, and then move everybody at that stage. It's much easier. But yeah, there's the parallel running, I think, is a very important part of it. But as I say, we also will help the accountant do the migration, and we have the tools built to do that from the various software packages that compete with us. I mean, payroll itself is a very sticky product. Like, even if somebody's very unhappy with their payroll software, they're paying far too much, sometimes they'll just continue using it because it's such a mission critical piece of software. So we try to make that whole process as easy as possible, really. That's all we do.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Paul. George, one for you. Again, thinking about what SmartVault does, one of the big change for firms is perhaps moving to a portal esign system for the first time. How do you recommend that firms manage that shift for their clients when they're fundamentally changing the way that they're engaging with a client?
Well, I think it's already been touched upon already, but just doing the research, making sure that the product you're going to is going to, one, meet all of your requirements from the accounting practice point of view, but also for the client. So I was speaking to accountants on a day-to-day basis, and they always say the biggest driver for them making a decision is how their clients are going to adopt it. So just make sure that with your clients in mind, brief them on exactly what's going to happen with making the change. And as we've already discussed, the training and support, along with all these other providers, SmartVault has that as well, with the customer success team and the training. So that's always going to be available for both the accountant and the client as well.
Yeah, excellent. I'm going to jump some of the questions we've got from the audience, because there's quite a lot of them. Naturally, some of the first questions through are talking about integrations. So how do the various products that we've got represented here actually work together? So I genuinely don't know who's the best person to kind of pick up on here. There's some of the questions that have come in that are very specific in terms of, does PI directly integrate with SmartVault, for example? But anybody, I mean, Jamie, you might be a good one to kick this off in terms of where are the integration benefits? How do they work? Can you give us a steer on that?
Yeah, sure. And I think it might make sense me jumping in, because if you are a firm using TaxCalc, then sometimes TaxCalc is your kind of main repository of your client information. So it's maybe like the anchor point where other systems would connect into. So yeah, I mentioned in the kind of workflow kind of section earlier about how QuickBooks Online can connect in with TaxCalc. So that's financial data or year-end information that would pull in. TaxCalc's remit very much is taking over at the year end. So your day-to-day accounting would be handled by the specialists, Xero, QuickBooks Online, etc. So we pick up that data, and then we take over in terms of preparing the tax and the accounts. And of course, we're producing lots of documents from within the system, final tax returns and final accounts. And we have the integration with SmartVault as our kind of lead partner document management provider. We only talked about the document integration, but that's also with client records as well. So a new client that's won and engaged into TaxCalc will then automatically sync into SmartVault, and then have the relevant kind of welcome pack ready to set up their user account individually, so that the client can access their documents. Maybe George can expand on that in a little bit, but basically, yeah, that's one key integration, is the actual client record data syncing between the two systems. And then of course our main integrations from there are with the HMRC and Companies House. So yeah, that's kind of our point of view, if that helps.
Excellent. George, anything to add on that?
Yeah, so Jamie touched on it really nicely there. So the actual main integration between SmartVault and TaxCalc firstly kicks off when you take on that client inside TaxCalc, and that's now pushed into SmartVault. But dotted around TaxCalc, wherever you're working, let's say in the tax return production system, you've completed your tax return, you now need to get that document out to the client. So previously, if you're using maybe a document management system that isn't SmartVault, maybe you're sharing documents over email, you've got to take that document outside of TaxCalc, put it on your local machine, attach it to the email. Now, inside TaxCalc is an option where you just send it straight into SmartVault. So your folders from SmartVault pop up inside TaxCalc. You select the folder it goes to, and straight away your client's got it without you actually having to log in to the SmartVault portal itself. So in the interest of the slides which we mentioned earlier, it's a real time saver.
Excellent. Anybody else got any comments on integration things to share before we move on to the next question, with time running away from us? Great. Next question. This is a good one. Somebody said, I saw Teams in a tech wheel that we showed. So Microsoft Teams. What's the panel's view on Google versus Office 365? Carl, got to be one for you, this.
Yeah, sure. So I can dive in. I mean, we've not considered Google for instant messaging, but we have used Yammer. We then moved on to Slack. We then moved on to Teams. We've used the Google Suite for some Office functions, but we use Office 365. We found as a practice that the Microsoft Suite just tends to work. That's my personal view. That's the view that we as a team have found. And I was the one who was resistant to moving from Slack to Teams. What we found, and this might upset the techies here, but we found that Slack was built for techies, Teams was built for normal people. Teams was built for those who want to send a GIF without typing in loads of nonsense like /GIF and trying to program a system just to send a laughing emoji. So we use that. And on a more serious note, what we found with Teams is if you're already in the Office 365 ecosystem, it works really well for sharing files and collaboration. And we also use it as part of our own tech wheel. To go back to that tech wheel, we use it. A perfect example is Practice Ignition. When we've got a new partner land in our business, we call our clients partners, by the way. We've got a new partner. It immediately pings into Teams with a notification to the wider team of the value of the contract and the details about the work that we've won. So it's been a high-tech version of what used to be our sales bell.
Just to add to that, I think that Office 365 tends to be a little bit more security oriented, and probably overly so sometimes, in that, you know, sometimes you're trying to share a document with somebody outside the organization. It can be a real pain in the ass because, you know, you have to give them all sorts of permissions. It's much more configurable, I think, as well, in terms of your incoming emails, etc., that, you know, there's less chance of being phished or spammed or whatever. So that's the impression we get. And I hope not got a legal note from Google having said that.
Anybody else got any thoughts on Google versus Office 365? I mean, we're 365 in our firm. Carl mentions that we've just moved from Slack onto Teams. So whilst we're using Office 365, we made the decision that Teams made more sense, having used Slack for many years. But we've certainly talked about kind of email challenges and things. Just by using an internal chat platform is going to reduce your email by about 25%. So if you're not using some kind of internal comms platform in your firm, there's an instant win there, whether it's Teams, whether it's Slack, whatever. But using something to do that is really, really powerful. The only thing I think I like Google, I tend to work with lots of different people, and therefore I end up using both Google Docs and Office 365. And I do like the simplicity of sharing documents in Google Docs. But I kind of revert when I want to write a document to doing it in Microsoft Word. So I think with anything, it's personal preference. There's a level playing field now around a lot of these technology solutions, and it does just come down to what do you feel most comfortable with. So I'm conscious time is pressing on. We're not going to get to everybody's questions. I'm really sorry about that. But certainly the panel, I'm sure if you have specific questions relating to any of the specific products, do look everybody up. I'm sure everybody here is on LinkedIn, and we'll accept any questions and things on LinkedIn. So we've got 5 minutes or so left. We've got to finish with that usual kind of wrap up webinar question when we're on a panel. The one piece of killer advice that you've got to an accounting firm thinking about tech, how to get the most out of tech. George, coming to you first, can you give us one real bonus piece of advice here?
Sure. So it's already been touched upon again, but I think it's just do your research and begin with the end in mind, because if you can find, obviously all these technologies do various things the exact same way, but there's some which might differ a little bit, and because there's so many technologies out there, it's those little features which do make the difference. So find the right piece of technology which is going to fit all of your requirements, going to be really simple, easy to adopt, and obviously you want to implement it to not leave it again. So you don't want to have to go through in a year's time to find another solution. So try and find the right one first time round.
Excellent. Thanks, George. Chelsea.
So my advice would be kind of take a day out every 6 months maybe with the team, day afternoon, just to research the software, see if it still suiting your needs, everything, you know, pricing wise, that you haven't had a price increase. Also sit down with your account manager, get a refresher demo of the software with all your team, and get your team to have questions prepared and also feature requests and or ideas for the company.
Excellent. Thanks, Chelsea. Jamie.
You're welcome.
Thanks. I would say keep one eye on MTD, because if you're thinking one year-end process is bad enough, you could be doing it 4 times a year in the not too distant future. So I would recommend that you get your workflows sorted now, so that you know you've got really good processes for when MTD for income tax self-assessment comes around. The current roadmap is April 23, as you said earlier, Will. So it's not too far away. They're going into public beta, I think, from April 22, or it's available even now if you've got the software available to do it. So you haven't got too many quarterly filings before it actually goes live, before you actually have to actually implement this quarterly reporting system. So that would be my advice: is get your systems, get your technology up to scratch now before that massive change comes in. So yeah, keep one eye on the horizon there.
Excellent. Thanks, Jamie. Paul, one piece of advice.
Yeah, I think mine's already been used, so I'll just add another one. I think if you make sure that the solution you're taking on board is scalable. For example, you know, if in the payroll world, if you're doing a lot of small clients and you suddenly manage to get that big client in who wants 500 employees done every week, but your existing software can't handle it, that's going to be an issue. So just to make sure you're scalable and future-proof, I suppose.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Carl, piece of wisdom.
Perfect. So I'm actually going to give you 2, Will. The first one is not to let the perfect get in the way of the good. So all too often we're currently sitting there, you know, still using Quill and Ink, and we're moaning about the fact that Microsoft Word or Google Docs doesn't do X, Y, Z. The reality is that no product as of today is going to meet every single one of your needs. However, what you need to do is have a buy-in process that allows you to work out what's right today and what's most likely to be aligned to where you're going, which tees me up to number 2. And number 2 is to define a set of questions and criteria that you'll use when evaluating suppliers. So what we did, say, we were very early on in the online accounting process. We've changed suppliers a couple of times along the way, but the questions that we ask ourselves are the same questions as they were back in 2007 when we first had to revisit this stuff. So the first one is, does the project do the job today? So is it fit for purpose? Will it broadly do what we need it to do? Secondly, is will the product do what we need it to do in 10 years' time? So do we believe in the strength of the roadmap? Do we believe in the direction that the product's being taken in? Are they looking to broaden out what they're doing? How does that fit with where we are as a firm? And then finally, will they still be around in 10 years' time? Are they well funded? Is the company well set up, etc., etc.? For me, those are the 3 critical questions, because if you've got a failure on any one of those, it's either not going to work today, it's not going to work tomorrow, or it won't be around tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. Excellent. So leaving it to me to sum up, I think that firstly, make sure you focus on the client. Make sure you focus on what the client wants, what you want to deliver for the client. And secondly, don't be afraid of taking a risk on technology. I was very fortunate that my business was built on the back of us taking risk on technology 12, 13 years ago. So don't be afraid of it, but go into it open, test it yourself, make sure you're comfortable before you roll it out to your clients. But fundamentally, it's all about the client. Everything we do is about the client, and if we focus on that, everything else is going to work. So thank you very much indeed to the esteemed panel for taking the time out and joining us. Thank you to you for all joining us for an hour of your afternoon. I hope it's been useful. Please do get in touch with the panelists if you have questions specifically related to any of the products, they will be more than happy to help. And apologies we haven't got to all of your questions today, but I do hope it's been useful. Enjoy the rest of the sunshine that is obviously pleasuring everybody around the UK at the moment. So have a good afternoon. Thank you again to my panel, and hopefully we'll speak again very soon. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.